All right, we're live. Be a little far away, don't you think?
No, it'll still work. My mic's super sensitive.
So, Wonder Woman 1984. There's already been like a lot of reviews on this. I haven't watched any of them though, just because I hadn't seen the movie yet. But yeah, this movie sucks. It's not without its positives, but it is not a good movie. It's not well written, it's not well choreographed, it's not even that great of a story, and it seems like 2.5 hours of exposition.
Okay, so we're talking about our first impressions. That's
okay. Yeah. I'm not super dissecting it, but that's just me right off the bat.
So first off, I'm not a big fan of criticizing movies unless they're just colossal garbage, like Avatar: The Last Airbender by M. Night Shyamalan.
Well, that's just a gimme.
Because it ruined a great series. It ruined something else that was great. But I liked it. There's several reasons. First off, this was our first time back in our hometown theater.
Yeah, that's a big
right
one.
up the street. So and you and I getting to go see a movie again, which is kind of our family thing as well. So that already kind of put me in the stage of I just want to go enjoy, have some popcorn and a drink, and kind of live life normal again, or how things used to be. So there was a little nostalgic moment for me that felt good about going into the theater. And then I was immediately irritated when they were sold out of pretzels because that's what I wanted to go and have.
Yeah.
But whatever.
I think that's the biggest thing that we should iterate with, like, this is, I wouldn't call this like a critical review or anything like the basis of all of this that everybody should understand is we do this because we love movies. We love the experience of it. And if you want to go watch the movie, go watch the movie. I'm just saying, if you want to look at it from like a critical standpoint, or if you want to have any hope.
Oh, I'm not saying I won't criticize it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying it's not like...
But what I mean is, like, the DC Universe, like, movie-wise,
struggles.
Their only claim to fame was the first Wonder Woman movie.
Yes.
That was it.
Yes.
Shazam was good and Shazam was funny. It just wasn't really a big thing for them.
It didn't tie into their cinematic universe as much on Shazam.
Yeah.
But anyway, so going into the movie, I had already heard bad reviews. It came out on HBO the same day it came out into whatever theaters were open, mid-pandemic. So it was gonna struggle to begin with. And the theaters are obviously throwing out their, or the studios are throwing out their fodder, because you don't have the mass openings anyway. So you're not going to worry about breaking box office records because not everything's open. Not all box offices are open. Yeah. So you can't really, the metrics that you would use to measure the success of a movie aren't there anyway. So give it something decent with some name appeal. It's got DC behind it. Wonder Woman, the first Wonder Woman was actually, I really enjoyed. There were some parts about it that but
it kind of trailed off at the end, but it's still, I think it's their best movie so far.
But the thing is, for me, looking at it, it's like, yeah, it was it was the best DC cinematic universe movie thus far, but that also is not a very high bar.
No,
so yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed it. I was pleasantly surprised, but it was not, I don't know. I don't want to say it was better than it wasn't as good as the worst Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, but it was good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I would rather watch Wonder Woman than I would rather watch Wonder Woman 84 than Thor: The Dark World.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
I get that. Okay, so back to this movie. Theaters are open. It was enjoyable to go back and watch one. I liked. I don't know if they intended to do this, but they did a good job of filming it as if it was filmed in 1984, if that makes sense. Now, the movie quality is good. It's obviously, you're watching it to a higher standard, film, projection, whatever else. So it's clear, it was clean. It looked like it wasn't grainy like an 80s movie. But random people standing off in the background doing random things. Like if you're looking in the backdrop of Ghostbusters, it just looks very, the acting from the extras seemed like they were deliberately being extras. And we're going to have the army in here, so let's have 5 guys in army gear and put them randomly here in this shot, but then you never see it anymore again, and a couple cops and people running around, like it's pandemonium, but there's only like 10 people and they keep running back and forth, almost like it's, some low budget cheesy. But for me, it was fun, and I enjoyed that because I grew up in the 80s. As I was telling you, in the theater, there's a 4th of July scene when they're flying over Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And I was in Washington, D.C. on 4th of July, next to the Washington Monument, on, at 8 years old in 1983 during 4th of July. So it was really cool because, that was an awe-inspiring moment for me to be there, and the level that they put into the fireworks and everything else is phenomenal. So it was cool to see that. The whole story, the speed of the movie was very slow, which again is very 80s-esque. So that part didn't bother me. It wasn't as fast-paced. But first impression, it wasn't a Wonder Woman movie.
No,
it was Wonder Woman if it was alternate universe Wonder Woman where she got magically thrown into Aladdin.
Yeah, that's what I was telling you right after we got out of the theater, is that it did not feel like a DC or a superhero movie. It felt like one of those weird standalone Disney movies where some kid has got like some kind of inexplicable ability, or what's it called? It's called like Wonder, or I can't remember exactly what movie it is.
It's like a standalone kids movie where the kid finds a magic wishing well, stone or rock or lamp, and has these powers and learns that all your dreams and wishes don't always come true, and things don't always work out quite the way you wanted them to.
To paint it with a very broad brush, it feels like that's seriously what it feels. It feels
like little Timmy learned his moral lesson at the end of the movie, kind of vibe to it throughout the whole thing, and so that part was, I'd say, incongruous. It just didn't seem like it was DC. It didn't seem like it was Wonder Woman. It seemed like Wonder Woman was just getting strung into another movie. So you could use all the same actors and all the same characters with a similar backstory to Christopher Pine's character. And hey, if you got to use a magic wishing stone to get Chris Pine back into a movie, I'm going to be all for that anytime, because I think he's a great actor. He's a lot of fun. He's got a charm about him that is the minute he was on screen in this movie, it's like it brings some levity to it. It brings a lot of heart to it. I really enjoyed him coming back into the series. And if that's the way they had to do it, then so be it. That's kind of cool. I'm okay with that.
You want to pause for a brief second so you can go do your thing? I can cut it in post.
Yeah. Well, I just want to finish my thought, though. Yeah. So, anyway, my other thought was it could have been its own movie with a similar type backstory, lost love type thing. Didn't have to be Wonder Woman, because you had the opening sequence of Wonder Woman. Then you don't see hardly anything that couldn't have been wish-driven. You know what I mean? It wasn't superhero. It was wish-driven powers.
It felt like they threw in that action scene in the beginning just to say that there was action, because hey, let's give the fans what they came here to see for a little bit. Some little Wonder Woman stopping robbery and saving a kid, and now let's go through this exposition dragging along the story for like 2.5 hours.
with no Wonder Woman stuff until the very end.
Right.
So it like I said, it doesn't feel like a Wonder Woman movie. It feels like she could have wished the powers just long enough to beat the bad guy, and then that was it. And then my other thing that kind of threw me off was the casting just didn't quite hit the mark. I like Pedro Pascal. I like him in The Mandalorian, but I haven't seen him in anything else. I know he's a big actor in other things.
I like
he
Kristen.
did a good job.
Yeah, I kind of like Pedro in that role.
He was it was good. Like cheesy car salesman kind of pitch guy, but there were a couple of casting things, and I'll just leave it at that just kind of threw me out of the story. And Kristen Wiig is funny, but that didn't seem like a role for a comedic actor.
That's what I was going to say.
And it didn't seem like a role that a comedic or actress or actor or whatever you want to call it, it doesn't seem like a role that someone in her position would jump into to stake a claim in serious dramatic or action hero role. It's not like I don't know who's a comedian turned
Chris Pratt.
There you go, perfect. Chris Pratt going from being the pudgy comedian to Star-Lord. He was still funny, he was still goofy, he was still kind of a little spastic as Star-Lord, but he got ripped and he kind of took it serious and he did the action stuff. Well, and it kind of worked. It just didn't work for her.
Well, that's why it works for Chris Pratt, because Star-Lord, it's like the same. The reason Iron Man works for Robert Downey Jr. because Iron Man is Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
Star-Lord is just Chris Pratt. And it's the same with like Ant-Man as Paul Rudd. So like Kristen Wiig, she does a really good job in the beginning kind of being the goofy, awkward,
which is a character she's done
exactly
in a million movies,
right.
You know, and everything she's in, she kind of does that awkward, spazzy. I mean, almost you could put her from any other movie that you've seen and she's playing that character in this. But then all of a sudden, because she makes a magic wish, she's now sexy and athletic, and it's like it doesn't. I don't know.
You can't pull a complete 180. The thing you can put her.
Well, it's a Princess Diaries switch. Well, you go from being the nerd with the of course the prerequisite glasses.
I was gonna say they even had her taking off the glasses.
Yeah, you do the Clark Kent glasses removal thing. Christopher Reeves did it great in the original, well, not the original Superman, but the Superman I grew up with, because he played Clark Kent very goofy, very awkward, but the minute that dude, got serious, he's a very handsome man and he pulls it off. Kristen Wiig there's still this element that you look at her and you're like, you're too funny to be taken in that. I don't know. She just didn't pull it off.
I think she is really funny because like the first time I saw her on screen, her opening scene, like the walking and the whatever she was doing, it was cracking me up. I remember. Yeah. I think of her like in Masterminds. I think of like her SNL stuff because I was just watching what is it, Dear Sister, the other day.
Yeah.
Where Andy Samberg and Bill Hader get into that shootout.
Oh, I've never seen it.
No, you've totally seen it. Remember when What You Say plays because he's.
No.
Shia, yeah, you've seen it.
Never seen it. Anyway,
you're lying.
No.
Shia LaBeouf comes in there, and they shoot Shia LaBeouf like 3 times, and What You Say plays like 5 times over.
Oh, it was a skit?
It's an SNL skit. It's a digital short.
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha. I thought it was a movie.
So I remember seeing her in that, and I'm watching. I'm just like, yeah, she's hilarious. I'm like,
yeah,
I can't wait to see what she does. But if she played some kind of villain that. Like I know they wanted to get Cheetah in there, but if she played some kind of villain that ran along the same lines of her character and her personality, it was a straight up Jekyll and Hyde.
So there's that's my last point on the first impressions. I like suspending reality, and this fell to the same problems of the Hulk. The Eric Bana Hulk.
I would say the original Hulk.
It's not the original.
Well, but not the Ferrigno one.
The Marvel, the pre-Marvel Cinematic Universe Marvel. What was the name of it?
It was just Hulk.
Was it just Hulk?
It was just Hulk. Yeah.
Okay.
That's why the new one's the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah. So great backstory as to why he's got all these powers and why he can regrow his skin and all that, and with all the little experimentation. And it wasn't completely true to the original Hulk story, but it worked. But then you can pick up a tank by the trunk, by the barrel, and pick the whole tank up and throw it another state away or slam it around. But then you struggle taking that barrel off the tank. Wouldn't you just again lift the tank up? You have limitless power to pick up a tank and then chuck it. but then you have limited power when you go to bend the barrel and you struggle.
Or
you jump 20 feet. That works for the big muscles and the oversized strength. But then the next scene, you're jumping, you jump like a flea and go from the middle of the New Mexico desert, and you're in San Francisco within 5 minutes of jumping 500 feet per jump. It just doesn't make there needs to be bounds and limits and things. I can suspend reality for certain parts of it, but you have to have the equivalent mass and strength to defy gravity or whatever. So when she flies,
we got to save this for the nitpicking.
Okay, first impression. So
yeah,
have set a bar somewhere with what we're suspending and what we're not. Like riding a lightning bolt with a lasso.
Yeah, that was so weird.
The electricity doesn't shock you when you touch it, but it does when it hits the water. Which
also, hey, when she's drowning Cheetah, why is it affecting? She's wearing a suit of metal.
Yeah. Well, okay. We'll say that for nitpicking. All right. Pause. Yeah.
Okay, we're back.
All right. Things we liked.
Yeah. So all the positives.
Well, there's plenty of positives for me. I really liked, like I said. And by the way, if you don't realize there's major spoilers and you haven't seen the movie by now, sorry, too bad.
It's been a while.
I really liked there was the part where she was walking around. I like seeing the history. I like seeing the Amazon, not like Amazon like the Amazon River, but I like seeing their little pre-culture or training. It was cool little tidbit. I like when they go into backstories of heroes and whatnot. I really liked the whatever part in a movie production is responsible for it, the emotional tie that you got when she's walking around looking at the pictures in her apartment. You get that longing, they show a certain picture and they show it again later in the movie. You get the idea of her living her life. And what I really liked, and the parallel it immediately drew me to, was Highlander.
Oh yeah.
So here it and that's why I'm saying it just didn't. Again, didn't seem like a Wonder Woman movie, but I like that idea and that concept. This is a character who has been around for a long, long time, and she didn't come out of hiding in her world until Chris Pine's character crash landed on her beach, right? I mean, in the first movie, or if I remember it correctly. So World War II, I think it was World War II. It wasn't one.
I want to say World War II.
I'm pretty sure it's World War II. So that's what most people.
I was going to say people don't really do stories about World War One. They do. Yeah.
So anyway, she's been around for a while, but I mean, obviously not as long as a Highlander. But I like that idea of her walking around as an immortal in a mortal world, and they really captured the loss, the longing, the loneliness of having continued to walk around this world in the body of a young woman, but the soul of someone who's been around for quite a substantial amount of time, and how everybody that she knew is gone. And it really captures her isolation and her loneliness, and how she's just committed herself to just being this superhero that tries to stay out of the limelight and not get a whole lot of publicity or notoriety or attention. And they did a phenomenal job of that. You could feel it.
Yeah.
And which did a fantastic job of leading into Chris Pine's character coming back, and the heart and soul of the movie. That connection was really good. I think along with that, the kid that played Pedro Pascal's son did a phenomenal job. was really well written. I think that portion of it was well written.
Yeah, that's
I
the
think
one
it was
thing
well
that
acted for a kid actor.
I really like that portion of the movie. I liked the Pedro Pascal with his son kind of thing, or what was his name in the movie? Something Lord, Max Lord.
Yeah.
I liked that side plot for him.
And well, no, hey, let's not spoil the movie with the guy's title name or Max Powers. He wants to be
Max Villain.
He wants to be the Lord. He's making wishes to be the king of the world and the most powerful thing ever, and you call him Max Lord.
Yeah, it was. That was.
How about Super God? Oh, is that too subtle? You know,
They just lengthened the full name to Maximus. Maximus Lord, savior of all.
Yeah, so that part, like I said, it had the kind of cheesiness of an 80s movie. I really liked.
I hope that was intentional.
Well, that's the thing. Like I said, I don't know if it was intentional. The speed of the pace of the movie and some of the the background stuff that was going on and the whole vibe of the movie felt like you were watching an 80s movie with quality film.
Yeah.
But they really did a good job of capturing the 80s outfits and the 80s vibe without really overselling it,
Yeah.
Like Goldberg's kind of goes over the top with the 80s stuff a little bit. But then when they fall back into their normal, when they're not pointing out that, hey, we're in the 80s, they settle back in and it's just part of the background.
Yeah.
I think they did a good job in this movie where, they're doing a little fashion thing and it's like, okay, yeah, not everything has to be neon, not everything has to be a half shirt, whatever. They had the yoga outfits, but people actually did like jazzercise in the mall kind of thing. There was that stuff going on.
I cannot believe the crap that you guys did. But that's the kind of stuff that I really...
But that made it fun for me because I grew up with it. I was 9 years old in the time that they're portraying. It was an amazing, magical time for me. I mean, you talk to anybody that was most everybody enjoyed it. It was definitely the door opening to a bigger world, and they did a good job capturing that.
Yeah. Well, my likes about the movie were like what I appreciate and what can make or break a movie a lot, and if it's an action movie or a drama or whatever, is that the jokes landed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When the movie tried to be funny, it was funny.
Yeah.
And that's more like that's thanks to Kristen Wiig, Pedro Pascal, and Chris Pine, that kind of thing.
Yeah. The wit played well.
Yeah, I think they did a good job of that. And you're completely right about the whole Chris Pine thing. He swoops in and saves that movie.
He's
like as best as he possibly can.
If you were to take him out of that movie, that movie would have fallen flatter than it
I would have walked out.
I liked how they did the invisible jet. I don't know. I dug it. I'm like,
I really like when a movie will try to work its way into like iconic things from the comics. You know what I mean? Well, I can't remember the last movie that did something like that, but like the Invisible Plane or the Lasso of Truth, or like I kind of liked how that's how she got her lasso of truth, was because she tried to cheat in the beginning thing, or level the playing field, I guess. So you could argue the ethics of it later, but I kind of like the idea of that's why she has the lasso of truth as kind of a reminder. But
well, so again, going back to the earlier premise, is that does it grow and shrink? I mean, it kind of became this ultra utility belt accessory. I mean, that lasso of truth, it's both a whip and a lasso.
When she whips it up and it grabs onto a plane. And
it stretches 20,000 feet up into the sky.
Positive. We gotta say good things.
Oh yeah. But I did like it that she had the weapon. I don't mind. Hey, spin it like Thor and use it as a shield. That works. I'm cool with it. I don't care.
That much I did like. Some of the fight scenes. I think some, and I stress some of the fight scenes were actually choreographed pretty well.
Some were
Some
were
were ridiculous. So okay, I'm gonna go off into the
okay. So hold on. Let's finish with the positive.
Okay, I was about
to.
So
use the lasso to fly. I'm cool with that. You know, if you want to whip up, why not? If it works like a helicopter blade and whatever.
Yeah, who cares? Just fly.
Just set a standard.
Set some boundaries.
Set a standard. Set some boundaries. Let's have a little bit of staying on the same level.
The lasso of writing. I mean truth.
Yeah. So anyway, one of the other things I liked was I can't remember, but I like the jet because I grew up watching the Justice League cartoon, and it was Wonder Woman in a seated position flying around. And you didn't see the plane. She was just in the sky seated, and it just seems funny.
You might as well have a Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy sitting in the back seat.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it was, and that's why they do that in SpongeBob, because they're mimicking or mocking the cartoon or the old Justice League cartoon. But I liked the way they did it. I thought it was kind of cool. I like there's a power, and that's what protected her little sanctuary that she was raised on.
Yeah.
And is a very positive, not to get political or anything else, or I don't want to kind of have this be a thing that we go into.
I want this to be separated from that kind of stuff.
I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get into social justice type stuff or having that discussion. I just wanted to point out, as a dad of 3 daughters, I would love to take your sisters when they were younger to have seen, you know what I mean? For them to sit and watch this movie younger, tell me that if they were, if any of your siblings were 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, that they wouldn't have enjoyed the heck out of that opening sequence.
Yeah, I think that's important because, look, you can say whatever you want about somebody's political standpoints, but at this point, it's completely the elephant in the room when it comes to movies or X, Y, and Z.
And I don't want to dive into that, but it didn't. My point is that none of the okay, I'm going to take a tangent and just explain my stance. Rey in Star Wars seemed forced. Here is this powerful, strong female character, right? It didn't feel earned. It didn't feel.
It's because it wasn't.
It felt forced, right? But hey, we need some empowering. We need some powerful, empowering females. Princess Leia was in the original, the very first Star Wars, and came out like she was shot out of a cannon from the very first scene you see her in. Yeah, you overran my ship. Yeah, you have the Force. Yeah, you have these stormtroopers. But I am going to send these plans to where you can't get them, and good luck, because I'm tipping, lighting the wick to this revolution. And she's putting everybody in their place. And Carrie Fisher's what? 5'1", 5'2"? I don't know what her stats. She's a very small person, and she wasn't super strong. She wasn't super muscular. She didn't have any superpowers. She didn't. Well, technically, I guess she didn't have the Force. But when they made the movie, she wasn't intended to have had the Force. But here she is telling.
She certainly wasn't beating Kylo in Force grip battles and shooting Force lightning by mistake.
She wasn't choking Darth Vader back, but she put Grand Admiral Tarkin, or Governor Tarkin,
Grand Moff Tarkin
in his place, talking smack to him, which shows her political knowledge, her political prowess, her place in the galaxy, and that she is a princess, that she has, she's been accustomed to this. She was a very powerful character. She didn't put up with anybody's nonsense. The minute she could save herself and save the day, she stepped in and she did it. She had the ability to do what she needed to do. She was a very powerful character. And what I think is that when you force it, it negates all the wonderful example that she was in a movie that no one even looked twice at. No, it didn't. It was a non-issue that everybody accepted because she was such a great character. I feel that Wonder Woman the first Wonder Woman and this Wonder Woman in this day of making movies where it's deliberate to be a message, really didn't dive too far into that message as far as her character. Now, like, again, there's some casting choices that just seemed kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up with like the elephant in the room. So Wonder Woman movie, there's a whole wave of like pro-feminism movies in Hollywood right now. And not to say it's a bad thing, but the problem is you get characters like Hulda, purple hair from Last Jedi, just completely ridiculous. But you had such an opportunity in this movie to pull that kind of same crap, and I was kind of worrying about it. But
it's not she's not a force-fed, powerful female character.
No, that's what I liked about it.
It was phenomenally done. Again, it's something that if you're, even at your sister's age now, they'd probably enjoy the movie. But as a young girl, if you want to look at a cool character, I have no doubt that if your sisters had seen this movie at a young, influential age, they would have wanted a Wonder Woman outfit and would have run around whipping a rope around, Phoenix especially.
Yeah.
She already tied you guys up. It would have been the lasso of truth instead of just a rope that she tied you to the olive tree with.
The lasso of do my chores.
Yeah. Yeah, wouldn't have been Phoenix Bucks. It would have been just the lasso of truth, and she would have, conned you into doing something for her.
No kidding.
But it was a really well executed, powerful female character. And it was done right in an era of so many force-fed, done wrong versions of that same thing.
I think that's a really strong plus for this movie, is that so here's the thing. The movie is lackluster, the writing needs a lot of work, and it's not a great movie, but through it all, the Wonder Woman character stays intact.
Yes.
Let's pause this for a second. Now to the fun part.
Okay. Dislikes and what
all
we
the
didn't
negatives,
like about the movie.
nitpicking. Let's rip this thing apart.
Okay. So, if you're going to have, let's start from the very beginning. You're going to have a 10-year-old. What was she, 10?
It was something like, maybe even less. I was thinking like she was 8.
Yeah. If you're going to have a 10-year-old riding a horse, shooting arrows in this Greek, Roman, Amazon, Spartan stadium, don't have her beating full-grown women unless you're going to explain that because she's the daughter of the queen, that she has a leg up and has a little more power. But she was smoking everybody, and they showed a little bit where it's because she was smaller, she could slide through the first hole of that obstacle course, or because she was, she had an easier time holding on to the little ladder thing. But don't tell me a 10-year-old can run faster than a 22-year-old.
That is the biggest hate that I have for any movie is some sort of kid prodigy who's just great at everything because they are, with no effort because they're young. See that? Okay. I'm sorry to any comic book fan out there. I absolutely hate Damian Wayne. He is my least favorite character ever. I hate him.
I loved him in Living Color.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
I know.
Who's Damian Wayne?
So in the comics,
I'm assuming Batman.
Damian Wayne is Batman's son with Talia al Ghul.
Okay.
Because she like drugs him and they have a child, and he's a total prodigy, raised by the League of Assassins. He is So he is just a cocky piece of crap. I hate him. He's so great at everything. He like puts up a fight against Batman, and I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I can't stand it. But
so show that there's a reason for
movies.
When Superman is 5 years old,
they grab something there. You said when Superman was 5 years old?
When Superman helps lift whatever, Daddy Kent, whatever his first name is, I can't remember.
No, who cares?
The first the Superman I grew up with, he's lifting the truck so that Dad can change the tire. They're like, oh, okay, well, this kid's strong. When he, can hit a ball to the moon or throw a football across, all of Iowa, there's an explanation for it. There's a reason he's beating everybody.
Yeah, seriously. They're all the same. See, okay, that's the thing that this movie really did.
So if he's on Krypton,
yeah,
he shouldn't be able to throw the ball further than any other Kryptonian as a 5-year-old, unless there's an explanation that he has more power for some reason.
Well, this movie, what they did worse than absolutely anything was they did a horrible job with setting like boundaries for someone's abilities. So like, look, I get it. What's her face? Kristen Wiig. Her
character grew in the strength. Became stronger.
She wished for Diana's strength. She wished to be like Diana, whatever. But Diana, she like you said, she's been around for years. She's fought in so many wars. She's part of a warrior culture. And Kristen Wiig is just somebody who got her powers. I mean, you could argue she wants to be like Diana, so she gets like some of the skills or whatever. But like,
she got the skills without the training.
But like,
so if she knows how to do them, then fine. We're talking about, again, magical wish genie stuff. So
you've got this suit of armor that she's wearing in like the fight scene with her that was apparently able to withstand the sword of an army of all men. What looked like were Spartans. I didn't get a great look at it.
I don't know. It looked like they threw into 300 all of a sudden.
Yeah. So like it can withstand all of that, but she, after getting powers after about a week, is somehow able to beat her in almost beat her in a fight when she's wearing that full piece of armor and rip it to shreds, to the point where she has to ditch the wings just so you can have that shot that you put in every single trailer where she strips off the wings for a second. And like seriously, I understand, she wished to be like Diana, but there is no way she should have ever put up a fight against her. Well, you could say that she was
having a hard time beating her when Wonder Woman was losing her powers.
Yeah, exactly. But like at that point, when it comes to a power level, it might as well, like, they're throwing each other and punching each other, but whatever. But as far as equal powers, it might as well have just been a human fighting another human.
Well,
there shouldn't have been a big difference.
Well, if she's wishing it and she wanted to be an apex predator, right? So that's why that was her wish. So that's why she became like the full-on animal version. And again, when you talk about force feeding something, it seemed like a forced way to mash that character into the story without putting her into a costume. Because how do you explain why someone's running around looking like
a cheetah?
Cheetah, is that who she is? Right?
It's just called Cheetah.
Yeah. So if you want to make her more like an actual feline human hybrid, short of lab experiment gone wrong, like The Fly.
Well, if you want to make her this socially awkward character, why not just make her a cat lady? That would have tied into both of them pretty well.
Yeah, but they wanted to full on get the costume. They wanted to go.
Yeah, they wanted to. The problem is with a lot of comic book movies, they try to stick true to the comics while still making it like as in a movie. So the problem is like put the comics aside for a second. Imagine you're sitting down and you want to make this superhero movie, and you're like, okay, this person needs to look like a cheetah in the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Why? Trust me. So now they have to write around that and come up with all these different excuses to make her look like that. Oh, by the way, she needs to be as strong and put up a decent fight against Wonder Woman, who's been around since seasoned warrior, who apparently can beat 10 full-grown Amazonian women when she was a 10-year-old, but now she's full-grown and has the best suit of armor ever made in the history of their culture. She's
getting decimated.
She's getting mauled for the first couple minutes of it.
How do you win a match against or a fight against someone with equal or more power? Two things. Skill, right? Or not skill, but
experience.
I don't want to say cunning, but your mind. Batman gets out of these situations because of his keen mind or his intellect or whatever. You know what I mean? He thinks his way out of a situation and snares the enemy in some elaborate something.
Yeah.
Because he can no longer rely on his super strength like Superman can, right? And even Superman does that, right? when he lost his power, he tricks him into going into the booth and switches the powers because he shows that the mind was the greatest weapon, which is something we've kind of lost in movies. Or you appeal to the humanity that is still trapped inside. And they tried to appeal to her humanity, through the dialogue, tried to appeal to her humanity, but it wasn't working. So, and this is what really gripes me, because I see Wonder Woman as like Superman, just this moral to a fault. So even to the detriment of saving the day or her own life, she won't, she's not killing anybody.
Yeah.
And they really went out of their way to show that she's throwing a chair underneath some guy who's getting thrown across the room to preserve life, which is awesome. But yet, to win the day, all they showed is Wonder Woman abandoning her moral high ground to electrocute this woman, seemingly at the time to death.
I was going to say, she didn't even die.
No.
She didn't even pass out.
I'm sorry, and holds her under the water to get electrocuted. And it's this moral breakdown of such a virtuous character. That's not what I want to see in a superhero movie. I don't want to see the champion win by compromising on everything that all the values that they've ever held true.
Well,
it's a loss.
Well, then you would really hate the end of Man of Steel.
Yeah. Exactly.
He straight up murders him. Well, like that. See, that's the thing that I understand. What are you going to hold most dear? At least in Man of Steel, because he is just about to murder a bunch of innocent people.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, that's the thing that I disagree with Batman on. But are you going to break the moral code? Are you going to kill him in the interest of saving that family? Yeah, that's why I do this.
Yeah.
But that's why I like the Red Hood so much. Because in all honesty, I'm not a huge fan of the whole "we don't kill" rule kind of thing. I think it's so. The only reason that I think that's there is to make sure you can keep writing the comics or keep making the stories. Because it's just it's the whole story with Batman and everything. Like, you're just gonna break out and do it again, but he still won't break the code.
Yeah.
But that's why I really like what Arkham City did. I'm going off on a tangent.
Yeah.
But personally, I'm not a big fan of that. But if you gotta stick true to the comics, whatever.
I like them having this. Like I said, if you stand for truth and justice, that was her whole point. Wonder Woman is like the female counterpart to Superman.
Yeah.
She's very powerful, very equal or close to in power and in virtue and all these other things. So to compromise all that, and that's how you get the win. But then how she beat Pedro Pascal's character was the appeal to the humanity.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. And that seemed like a good win. And the outcome, obviously, of the movie, it was the definitely the Scooby-Doo happy fairy tale ending.
Seriously. Well, the fact
ended
that,
like a Hallmark commercial.
The fact that literally everything got completely reversed and there was no repercussions whatsoever, and there's singing in the streets and children playing with snowballs.
Well, yeah, the wall turned into
water.
Turned into the water that they so desperately needed. I don't know if you picked up the line of dialogue that the wall cut them off from their only fresh water supply.
I did. I saw that.
And then all of a sudden the wall becomes this river, and it opens up into the Mediterranean or whatever. But it wasn't fresh water, but whatever.
They're trying to appeal to the whole "there's so many beautiful things in this world" kind of thing that they were doing at the end. But it's just. You kind of just showed throughout the entire movie that there's some really sick, horrible people.
Yeah.
So it like all the people celebrating in the street were wishing for fame, wealth, and for other people to die.
or
you
a
know what I
nuclear
mean?
weapon, and then all of a sudden you change your mind and you don't want a nuclear weapon anymore because the Care Bears joined together and
Yeah.
shown their beam of light changed the world.
You can't tell me that somebody off of a little speech will, one, be ready to murder millions of people for power or gain or because of what's happening to them, and then immediately pull a 180.
Well, the lasso of truth helped them see the light. And that was kind of the point, but whatever.
But I don't. But it doesn't make me get the message of. That was kind of the first thing they were saying in the first movie, because they're like, yeah, we're cut off because the world of man is evil.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Well, okay, and then Ronald Reagan
or whoever that president was in the movie.
It was supposed to be Ronald Reagan. Either make him look like Ronald Reagan or don't. And putting a picture of himself on his own desk. I don't know if you saw that.
I did, yeah.
It's just he might as well have had the chin on the Uncle Rico picture of himself.
Seriously.
on his end table right next to his desk in the Oval Office. Who does that?
Have him sign it too, just to drive the point home.
Exactly.
Ronald Reagan. Yeah.
To Ronnie, love Ronald. You're the greatest president. Love you.
You want to talk about stuff like that? I talked about it in the first part, but seriously, the electrocution scene. She is wearing a suit of metal.
Yeah.
It's metal.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any third graders around, but those are conductors.
Oh,
and so is the water. Her skin alone, being underneath the water, would have shocked the crap out of both of them.
They really didn't put a whole lot of, even the Big Bang Theory. One of the reasons the Big Bang Theory was so successful is because even the set dressing in the background were actual, real equations.
They had real physicists come in and write down the equations.
So they're not making statements that are just complete BS. Like in Star Trek, they made things up because no one knew the difference.
Well, it's the same thing with like parsecs. Like in the Solo movie, the reason they had to make it a thing of distance is because sex kind of sounds like it's short for seconds.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a unit of time, but nobody knew.
Well, and Lucas might have looked that up to begin with and thought, well, you got to do hyper jump routes because he talked about that. But
but that point being, because they were talking about the speed of the ship.
Exactly. It just for 20 years, no one really thought about it. Like, oh, that sounds good to me.
But
so,
when you're underwater in a
the thing is, you can have there are wires that run underwater, and sometimes they. But remember the pond we used to have, the waterfall?
Yeah, I do.
Remember when the pump would short out and you got that tingling sensation when you
get shocked.
You weren't electric. Well, no, you weren't getting shocked. It was this slow electrical current that you could feel because the electricity gets dispersed through the volume of water.
Okay, but my thing is,
if you're standing in a puddle and it hits it, then yeah.
But if you're gonna take Cheetah, who's just as strong as you, and hold her underneath the water to incapacitate her, but somehow you're okay, even though you're wearing clothes that are 1,000 times more conductive than fur.
Yeah, it didn't affect you. But let's throw all that aside. Why don't you go 2 minutes earlier in the movie where she's grabbing a bare high power line?
Oh yeah, with her bare hand, and she's fine.
Well, so like a bird, you can touch it as long as you're not grounded, right?
Yeah.
But here she breaks the wire. It's arcing right next to her. Like, all the electricity is not in the metal she's also holding.
Yeah, and
so
they had all the shocking sound effects too. I'm I'm watching it. I'm like, is she seriously getting shocked right now? And swinging around?
Yeah, if you're, that's like I said, why a bird can land on a wire and not just fall off because they get electrocuted because they're not grounded. So she wasn't grounded, and she was jumping from wire to wire. But do we so desperately need it to be Spider-Man-esque? The lasso of truth became.
Well, they're trying so hard. They were trying so hard to pull the she's a dark reflection of Wonder Woman kind of thing.
But that goes back to the nitpicking, or the what I didn't like is that the lasso of truth became everything. And when you are using it to be Spider-Man, to be both Spider-Man and Thor, that you can use it to grab something and pull yourself forward by hooking onto a plane, not to mention it would rip her arms completely off her body.
Or it would rip the plane.
Or rip the wing off the plane, just like when she dove and saved the kids. you rode a rocket.
Oh, yeah.
You rode a lasso on a rocket.
She rides the rocket.
You crash the rocket on the ground, or sorry, RPG. You bury the RPG in the ground, but still continue to move forward.
How is it that? How powerful is that rocket to where, like grabbing it with a lasso and propelling yourself forward doesn't change its course at all?
No.
And by the way,
didn't affect the trajectory when you lassoed it, and then you were standing there on the ground. But then, while you're not anchored to anything, now all of a sudden you can change the direction of it with a flick of the wrist, and bury it into the ground to save everybody and not have anybody harmed.
Also, why didn't they use that rocket to begin with? If it was
to use the rocket, and when have you seen a RPG? I don't know. Maybe that is a thing where you can load it into the top of a tank and then shoot it up in the air. Why didn't you just use it to blow up all the other cars that you were just fighting so desperately to destroy?
Yeah, and speaking of that scene, too,
use it to blow up the tire of the bad guy's car that you're trying to catch him with.
Speaking of that, like, as well, the whole, like, the kids playing soccer in the street and the... Ooh, that actually looks pretty... the kids playing soccer in the street and not noticing the cars. I'm sorry, I don't care what country you're from. Everybody knows when someone yells car, you go to the side of the street, and when the car passes by, you resume the game.
So they used to have commercials, or about the kid running out into the street chasing the soccer ball, and you thought it was just a cheesy commercial of car safety and whatever else. But the minute you start driving, you actually see it happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Kids do that. They follow. You see a
but
ball
they're
roll
coming
across
from like a mile away. There's
no,
like
I know.
5 cars.
But you see the ball go across the street. They run out in the street. They see the car. They get the surprised look on their face, and then they get hit by the car. Yeah. They're already in the street. It's the middle of the desert. Is there a jet engine warming up so it's so loud they can't hear?
I was going to say, not only that, but she buries the RPG into the ground and it explodes, and they don't even react. They're still kicking the ball, still passing the ball around.
Well, that's because the cars that they don't hear are so loud it muffles the sound of the explosion of the RPG.
It blew up like 20 feet from them, and they didn't even move. They were close enough that chunks of dirt should have been hitting them.
Put a sign on the building that they're running around that says School for the Hearing Impaired and the Blind. Put a sign up on the school that says visually and auditorily impaired, and then
but somehow can still play soccer.
But it legitimizes them not noticing a fleet of vehicles headed their way with certain doom.
Yeah,
and again, that brings me back. That takes me back to the cheesiness of the '80s movie kind of comparison, where that's the kind of stuff that '80s movies had. It's like this completely implausible type of reality. It's like, okay,
so, and like to further that point, the opening scene. Why is she doing like a full gymnastics routine around like the bridge of the mall with a lasso to take out 2 unarmed guys? And seriously, she like lassos around the entire mall at like Mach 4 just to take 2 guys out and then destroy police property.
Exactly. You ruined a car to take 4 jewel heisters into custody, and not to mention you also destroyed the security cameras after they've already filmed you for 5 minutes, and your lasso is long enough to reach an airplane up in the sky going full speed, but it's not long enough to wrap up these 2 bad guys and leave them wrapped up, and then wrap up these 2 bad guys and tie them all up together. She lassoed them and unlassoed them 2 to 3 times each.
Seriously, why couldn't she
quit letting them go? They'll stop causing damage if you stop letting them go.
And she did like the whole, like she ran around the entire mall, like I don't know if she was checking the selection or what. She ran by Hot Topic in the food court, and then she slides like 10 feet into the guy's leg to make him do like a quadruple backflip, and then grabs him by the ankle to just hold him there. I'm like, oh, okay. So, is she gonna interrogate him? Is she gonna do what? But then she has the whole facial expression conversation with a little girl that she threw into the
most awkward wink on the planet of the history of the planet. Is that the one you're referring to?
Yeah. And like just to let the guy go and eventually tie him up and throw him on like a $5,000 car. I'm like, what was the point of any of that?
So that brings up another topic. You notice that part of her outfit, she's running around in like Roman sandals, right?
Yeah.
Smooth leather-bottomed sandals. Yeah, they're a little bit better than flip-flops, but point being is, and not that I condone or want to promote violence, but I kind of do want to punch the person in the face that first came up with this run and slide and attack on the slide maneuver. I don't know where we first saw it.
People really don't get the idea that you lose a lot of speed when you slide.
Well, every time I try and run and slide, my skin rips as I grip the floor and fall flat on my face at like a faster rate. All it does is catapult me further into the ground. And she's sliding with bare knees and bare thighs. That's going to grip that mall floor with some strength and rip some. She's going to lose some skin. But she runs around and she has the most amazing traction of anybody to be able to start off running and run faster than a car. But then the minute she wants to stop running, she goes sliding across the floor as if there's no traction on her flip-flops or sandals anymore. But then has traction again.
Yeah.
Which one do you want? So, anyway, pause. Okay. So, what else was there?
Well, the opening fight scene just so obscure and poorly choreographed so a big thing for me was kind of the overall tone and feel of the movie, like straight from the get-go, right? So they want to go with the big 1984 theme. You know, I get that. And call back.
Why? It didn't even need to be. I mean, if you weren't bringing Chris Pine back for a reason where 1984 was the only place that worked, what was the point? Other than to not interact with the rest of the DC universe, I guess. Anyway, your point was...
Yeah. Well, that was actually another point I was going to make, is why the whole time skip, why this time period in general and whatever. But, like, straight from the get-go, they do the whole opening sequence with the text and everything. And it's very pixelated, very old TV-esque. Yeah. And then we're in what looks like ancient Greece. But, it's Themyscira. But you've got the flashy, pixely... text going over this ancient warrior culture.
Welcome to 1984.
Yeah.
Now we're going back to 1940s. That is Land of the Lost.
Yeah, I feel
which is actually going back to like 200 BC.
Yeah, I feel like the movie couldn't decide on its tone or its feel. Yeah. Like straight from the get-go, like the whole text. I don't know if it was bugging you, but it was seriously throwing me off. Like throughout the whole movie, the whole opening scene. Yeah. Because like I'd be trying to get into it, trying to see what it's like, and then the text pops up on screen and pulls me right out of it. It makes it feel like a flashback.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. Yeah, it's a flashback, but this is the opening scene.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So why couldn't you have had that opening scene and then do a title sequence of Wonder Woman 1984? Because that's what you could have done. You could have just had the opening scene, no text, no nothing. Then you could have done the whole title sequence after that, Wonder Woman 1984, play the music, and then have the opening credits in, because that would drive the point home, the time skip in the era,
yeah.
And that would have done it a lot better. And the other thing about that bugs me is, once again, the first fight scene, it's you have this guy who's screaming about not going back to jail, about to throw a kid off the railing, and then it's a very it's messed up. And then Wonder Woman comes in, saves the day, but it's a very old school cartoony kind of thing. You know what I mean? Kind of like when
Well, that's why I was saying it feels like they really captured the way 80s movies were written, but it almost doesn't feel on purpose. Like it was just kind of...
I think it was just like that. Like, what I mean is, she starts fighting the bad guys, crushing the weapons, this, and that, destroying all the security cameras, and then she throws the little girl sliding, laughing into a giant teddy bear, or something like that, and she's all laughy and giggly, and then you have the whole whipping scene, X, Y, and Z, and she's winking and doing whatever it is with the girl, and I'm like, what's the feel here supposed to be? Is it supposed to be a little dark? Is it supposed to be kind of funny? Is it like I don't know what the scene was trying to do.
Yeah.
And then right after that, you've got just gloomy, lonely, monotone. I wouldn't say monotone, monotonous, and here's the biggest gripe of the movie that I haven't really gotten around to or haven't found a way to put in yet, because we're talking about specific scenes. This movie drags on.
Yeah.
I get it. I love a slow-paced movie, especially older ones, but I love it when they have purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You look at a scene and you can tell what's going on off of the music and off of just the acting. I think I brought this up on the Tombstone one. One of my favorite scenes of all time is from the first Rocky movie, when he's just walking around the ring. Mm-hmm. But in this one, it was like I was watching the second and the third Hobbit movie again.
Yeah.
You're like 40 minutes in, and you're like, why are we still here? Or why are we still doing this? Somebody come in and condense this.
We're an hour and a half in, and yes, I finally get it. It's 1984, and I understand now. It's lonely and depressing, and you're happy to have him back. And this, it just, like you said, it drags. So
yeah, and keep in mind, we were alone in the theater. So we weren't being rude, but like at a certain point, I asked my dad. I'm like, hey, when did we come in to see the movie? And I started at like 10:50. I pull out my phone. It's like 12:20, and we're still in like the exposition build-up phase.
What I didn't tell you is that I had done the same thing. So
you looked at your phone too.
So I did a time check, just. For the first time, we saw Wonder Woman back in her outfit doing her Wonder Woman thing. So it was when they were in Egypt, right? The movie was what, 10:40?
10.
It was supposed to be 10:40.
Well, it started at 10:50.
They didn't play any. There was no one in the theater, so they didn't bother playing trailers or running the movie. But then once we got there, they're like, "Oh, hey, go ahead and start it up." So it was probably 10:55 when it started rolling, but it went straight into the movie.
I would say at the most 10:55, but realistically, I'd probably say 10:50.
Even if you say 11, just to be generous and play it safe.
That's still
when I pull the first time she comes back, and when is that? At the White House?
No, it's at Egypt. Because remember, he gets all the power in Egypt, then he goes to the White House, right?
Yeah, but she wasn't. Oh yes, okay, yeah, you're right.
The car chasing.
The car chasing. I pulled out my phone and looked, and it was 12:29.
It takes like an hour and a half.
It was an hour and a half.
It takes an hour and a half just to say, truth is good. Kristen Wiig is lonely.
Yes.
And or is socially awkward, and she's lonely and depressed, and Chris Pine is back. That is 30 minutes worth of exposition at the most.
Yeah, and what's the run?
It's an hour 20.
What's the runtime on the movie?
Oh, what, like 3 hours?
No, it's like 2:30, 2:40, I think.
I'll if you go.
Okay, the runtime is 2:31.
Yeah, so 2.5 hour movie. That's not crazy, especially for us. That's pretty long.
It's 3/5 of the movie.
Yeah,
right?
that's pretty bad. But to take away from the timing for a second, especially in the beginning of the movie, there's like a problem with the dialogue. It's very, very spoon-fed, not very clever dialogue. And the worst scene with that is when Wonder Woman, or Diana, and Kristen Wiig are out getting lunch or dinner, and she starts talking about, I'm not really popular, or so. You seem like you would be popular. or stuff like that. And it's such spoon-fed,
Yeah.
just base level.
Can't Buy Me Love, the popular girl invited the nerdy girl out to dinner, and she can't believe she gets to spend time with the popular girl, and we get it.
Well, yeah, it's just like, instead of having dialogue or sharing little anecdotes that could suggest that so we can make the connection for ourselves, it's spoon-fed right to you. It's, instead of saying like, oh, you could have Diana say something about going out to eat or working with colleagues or something like that, or she's like, oh, I've never really done anything like this before. You could have like dialogue like that where it suggests that she's unpopular, but
You don't even have to show the dinner scene.
Yeah, no,
Just,
not at all.
You can sell it in, oh, really? We get it. Move on.
But instead, it's in your face. I'm not very popular. You seem like you would be. I don't really have many friends. This, and that. It's everything. It's telling you what the character is. It's like as if you were to read a character synopsis.
Yeah.
It's not very clever writing. I don't know. It feels like I'm watching Revenge of the Fallen again. Back when the writers were all went on strike.
Revenge of the Fallen.
Second Transformers movie.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Hard to watch.
Yeah, so thankfully this movie didn't suffer from it on that level, but especially this movie just struggles with exposition so much.
Okay, so that is my biggest gripe about DC overall. And I've heard some people that have watched the new Zack Snyder cut, but it's R-rated. I don't know why it needs to be, unless you're adding just more violence to it. I don't see what else they're trying to do or why they're doing it, unless Superman plans on dropping some F-bombs out of nowhere. I don't get the need for it.
You know, Zack Snyder was going to give Superman a mullet. I'm sorry, but he's in like my bottom 3 directors, and I won't put it. Okay, tangent.
Yeah.
You were saying?
So going back to what we were talking about powers and skill level and whatever, DC always suffers from what I call the action figure mashup, where, what was it, Superman, the first Superman or Man of Steel, it looked like someone was taking their action figures and just slamming them together and bashing their heads together and calling it a battle. Like if you were watching a 4-year-old play with his toys and good guy's beating bad guy and he's just slapping the two action figures together. That's what all the fight scenes always look like. They're just pummeling each other into the dirt, and the only thing that gives way is the dirt. You're both great. You're both super strong, fantastic. But when you're swinging on wires and, riding lightning with your magic lasso, don't hit. If you're so strong that the person punches you and you fly back 1,000,000 miles, but you're not injured, what's the point of having them fly back 1,000,000 miles? Just have them be strong enough to stand their ground. But, with her slippery sandals, I can see why she slides back forever.
Yeah.
It just becomes this big mashup mess of everybody slamming each other around. Now, with that being said, the Christopher Nolan Batman series is one of my favorite trilogies.
One of the most well done trilogies ever.
It's exceptionally well done. They ground it in the real world principles and gravity and whatever else. And when they fight, it's a little over the top, but whatever, it works.
Where was it over the top?
Some of this stuff. I mean,
in the Dark Knight
you're
Rises,
you're driving the monorail, whatever, and you put a lanyard up there or whatever he did, his little batarang, to catch on to the train, and then you're swinging underneath it. Well, please tell me how the train's suspended, because eventually you're going to hit one of those uprights. Something's holding it up, unless it's running on a rail on top. You can't drag behind it. Same thing on what is it? The Spider-Man cartoon one.
Into the Spider-Verse?
Into the Spider-Verse, right? he swings and grabs the train, and the train is on an elevated rail, but they're riding along the side of it.
Yeah.
But the way gravity works, and when you're being pulled in a straight line, you're going to be pulling as close to in the path or track of that object as possible. You're not going to continue out here onto the side of it to where you're going to clear. Eventually, you're going to get pulled into the pylons and hit them every single time you go. So that's the kind of suspended reality, and then you launch it, speed style off of an unfinished track, or you blow up the track and it crashes into the basement, and then nobody dies. That's the kind of suspended reality I'm talking about. So when you're talking about Wonder Woman, there's so much that's suspended beyond norms that it takes you out of that element. So
yeah, that's a big problem with the movie. It's just there's like a lack of basic principles that used to be in play with a lot of older movies, and I don't even mean like older, like that much older. I mean like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
like it's
so just, like going back to Tombstone, the cuts in the OK Corral shootout. If you're cutting and then picking up a camera angle, don't make it look like Doc Holliday just had 20 rounds in his revolver. Mistake. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's called a 6-shooter because there's only 6 shots in it, right?
Yeah.
They don't call it a 20-shooter. So don't just sit there and keep firing the gun without showing some reloads. Those are things that they used to do in movies that doesn't work anymore because today's audience is a little more savvy, a little more educated. They can look up on the internet and get any answer. Most people understand the concept of gravity. They understand that a lightning bolt is energy and you can't hook a lasso to it and fly.
And
just kind of ground it a little bit, and it'll keep people in the movie.
Like, look, I get it. It looks cool. It is really cool. But unless she's like Zeus or something,
hey, if you're watching Percy Jackson and he grabs a lightning bolt, okay, I'm going to accept that as one of Zeus's powers.
Well, that makes sense because that's Greek mythology. Zeus made the lightning bolt. It was like something he would hold.
Yeah.
But it's like, why is she grabbing lightning? Yeah, it looks cool, but like, could you imagine that in the pitch meeting? So she's gonna lasso a plane from like 2 miles away, which is also conveniently she can just hold on her waist. I don't even want to think about how many times she has to wrap it up.
No, it just automatically coils back up on its own, I think.
Yeah, and it coils
appeared to do.
Right back up, and then for some reason she didn't need to do that to begin with because she can apparently twist the rope and propel herself forward with it anyway.
Well, in the first chase scene, the hour and a half into the movie where you actually see her, Wonder Womaning again, she loses her power she starts getting weaker and losing her power, and the lasso disappeared when she was doing her thing, and then when she stands up and dusts herself off, it's coiled back up. So it's like it loses its power and retracts like poking a snail's eyeball. I don't I don't get it.
Another thing about that whole thing is like if she's losing her power, right, and the bullets start to graze her or start to hurt her or start to even break the skin, and when she
what were they doing?
She was
like, it going through her? Was it just
she kept getting grazed in like the same
but
spot?
But she got grazed in the middle of the chest. Like in her like at her collarbone. How do you get a graze on your collarbone?
I don't know.
Did it go through, or did it just bounce off and leave a really, really traumatic bloody bruise that it bled without breaking the skin?
Well, yeah. But my thing is, if she when she renounces her wish and she gets her powers back, right? Her skin regenerates and she is like invulnerable to it. Then what's the point of the bulletproof bracelets? What's the point of putting on the super strong armor?
Any of the outfit. Just wear street clothes. If you're bulletproof.
Like, what was the point if she's bulletproof? And what is the point? And you can even make the argument, well, she's not actually bulletproof. Okay, then why does she get healed when she...
Yeah. Oh, okay, and the lightning, I gotta go back to last time, promise. Riding a lightning bolt, she lassos onto the lightning twice, right?
Yes.
And swings from it.
How long does lightning last?
There you go. There you go. Now you're picking up what I'm putting down. So is she swinging faster than the speed of light, or is she, or I don't know.
Is she
I don't
really?
get it. I don't get it.
Is she? She's really, really hoping the next lightning strike is about a swing's distance away from the last one.
I mean, Doc Brown could have really used her help.
Oh my god!
I mean, Marty would not have had any worries about getting back in time.
Oh, they should
with that power.
They should have done that for the time skip. Just have her. Like, she's swinging and she reaches 88 miles an hour, and the next time her lasso hits the lightning bolt,
so it was 1984. If you saw in the background when she's walking past the theater, it was Ghostbusters, right?
Yeah.
Oh, no, Back to the Future is 85.
It is 85.
Yeah. So they did miss an opportunity to have a DeLorean in there.
Well, that's another thing. Why is it 1984? Why is it that specific of a year?
I don't know. I mean, it's a good time. It's definitely a good time, but it just...
Well, like,
whatever.
What at all...
It corresponds to absolutely nothing, except for, like, the gas crisis, I guess, and the oil wars and all that. And so it kind of roughly, vaguely played into the premise. But
there is a lot of
why
stuff.
did a guy who can grant wishes, why does he care about oil? I don't get it.
He could have picked so many other... He could have just... Why does he want his... I want my business to do well so I can get money and have more. Why not just wish for infinite wealth?
Yeah, I mean, if the coffee shows up that the person wishes for within 30 seconds, you know, they didn't show the person wishing for $1 million. You want to impress your kid with how great you are, and then you get greedy and you keep wishing for more wishes kind of thing. What are you trying to sell me? I don't know. It's just very disjointed. It didn't know what it wanted to do, but unfortunately most of the DC universe suffers from, let's just put it out there because we have to, and we have to compete with Marvel in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And much like having powers without earning them, they want to jump in and capitalize on what Marvel's capitalized on.
Oh my gosh, that's why the frickin' Justice League movie came out after one standalone DC movie.
They put the cart before the horse. So, DC, you have to have your Batman movie, and pick a Batman, please. Pick a Batman.
As long as it's
pick
not
a Batman.
Ben Affleck.
I don't care who it is. Just pick one. Sign the guy. You saw what happened to Robert Downey Jr. Sign the guy up for a 20-movie contract for $20 billion, trillion, whatever you got to do. Lock the guy down.
You know what? Speaking of that, I'm really excited to see how Robert Pattinson plays Batman. That movie looks like it's shaping up to be really good.
Well, it's starting to suffer from other reasons, but that's for another talk.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen anything on that.
Anyway, we've had a million different Batman iterations. You can't just start off with this multiverse concept and have people jump onto it.
No.
With that being said, you got to have your standalone Flash, your standalone Wonder Woman. Didn't Wonder Woman even come in after Justice League?
I think it did. You know what? I think Wonder Woman
right after.
I think Wonder Woman was before Justice League.
I don't know. That's how bad.
I don't know.
The continuity is you got to have your backstory movies. And I heard that in this new Justice League 4.5-hour Zack Snyder cut, they have all of decent backstories for each of these characters. But
I'm sure, but use a movie to do that.
But Cyborg, there's got to be a lot of history behind that. You can the dad that creates him and the why. It seems like a great concept for a very deeply impactful tragedy. You want to talk about a movie that would have some heart and some grip and really, really have you sucked into why he has to turn his son into a cyborg.
Well, yeah.
Find me a more impactful, emotionally impactful movie than something. You get a good writer behind that story. I don't know much about the character, in comic books or whatever else, but as far as the reasoning behind it, It's like if Frankenstein's monster was actually Dr. Frankenstein's kid,
Yeah.
and that was the motivation. That is hugely impactful. So sell the backstory. Then guess what? When you have the Justice League, it means a lot more. They work out their kinks. They
what you can
see how
also
they work
do
with each other.
if you really want to tie in like some of the other stuff and other heroes and bring in more people and to tie into the Batman universe as well. You have Cyborg. You can tie it into one of the most beloved animated series of all time, the Teen Titans. They're suffering right now with the live action bullcrap they're peddling.
Yeah.
But
well, the other thing is
like,
when you make your movie, when you make your superhero movie, and you know eventually you're going to join all these guys together, don't have Superman is in Metropolis or Metrocity or
Metropolis. Metrocity is how
No,
Megamind says.
I know, but it's Metropolis, right? Which is
Yeah.
supposed to be New York.
It's New York, yeah.
But yet Gotham, which New York was originally named, right? I think back in the early, 1700s,
I have no clue.
is also New York,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it's even
But
got
it's-
like 3 separate islands.
Yeah, but point is, nowhere in any of these Batman worlds does Superman seem to exist. Nowhere in Wonder Woman's world do you see a place for Batman or Superman when they're doing their standalones. Even this, they're doing it in 1984.
That's before any of their time.
No.
No, you know what I mean?
Superman was still around.
No, what I mean is in the movies like that they're making now.
Yes.
1984, Batman wasn't around. Like this Batman wasn't around. None of the Justice League was around.
No, I understand that. But all that stuff, if it comes out in 2000, so you're talking, 44 years? No. Why is my math so far off? 85, 15, 35 years,
Yeah.
right? 30 to 35 years. So if Superman is in his mid-30s, early 40s, how old's, Henry?
Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
He's a little older than I think he's portraying.
Younger
for
than
Superman.
me, maybe the same age. He's 40, 43. Point is, if Superman is, say he's 35 or 30, say he's 38, right? To 40. He landed here as a little baby, right? A newborn, thrown in this pod and shipped off. Why not have like a little news article in the background when you're having this, the news was a big portion of this movie. Have this thing crash land and have it make some kind of headline. Tie it in,
You know what?
a little bit.
It's the same-
Talk about the Wayne Empire.
That's what Doctor Strange did. Just to let you know, kind of like the timeline of it, how it tied in when he's driving in the opening
Yes,
scene.
they talk about-
I've got an army colonel here with like a severed spinal cord. It's what
Yes.
happened to Rhodey in Civil War.
Exactly.
You get something in there for the super fans.
Yes.
And here's the thing: you can say like that's only for the people that are really paying attention. But look, here's what's going to happen: some super fan will notice it. It'll get posted on Instagram. It'll get posted on Facebook, and now everyone will know about it. And then everyone's going to be talking about.
Have some tie-in if you're
how
going
it
to put
ties
them
in.
all together. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And now you no longer have Ben Affleck as Batman. So where do you go from here with that? It's like we were talking about with throwing the X-Men and putting Hugh Jackman into the MCU.
Right.
Don't throw Hugh, and for those who don't, MCU is Marvel Cinematic Universe. Don't throw Hugh Jackman into that without recasting it. So like in WandaVision, they put in the X-Men Quicksilver
Yes.
because they already killed off the MCU Quicksilver. But in that Quicksilver is Magneto's kid. Yeah, you can make it all explained, but just start over fresh because they had started the MCU without any impact of mutants. They started it that way. They've never really nodded to mutants at all in the MCU.
It was completely devoid of X-Men.
This is how they've proved black holes, right? Is because the effect of the gravity, the effect of an unseen force affects the way light travels.
Yes.
Getting deep here. So there would be an effect of mutants coming into their own on just the culture in itself.
Well, that's what
So
all
have
the
that
X-Men
play,
movies get into.
but so have that play into why Iron Man feels that he needs their, when he's talking about their unforeseen, there are things.
Oh, the Sokovian Accords?
No, just wanting to wrap the world in armor.
Yeah.
There are things that are coming up that are bigger than us. Well, not just aliens. Now there's people with powers. Start drawing on that. You've got to preface it a little bit before you start mashing all these things together. And that's done through good dialogue, good writing, and pre-planning. Pre-plan your movies. This suffered from a lack of pre-planning. And where do you want to end? And Star Wars, the newest trilogy, suffered from that.
Well, which is surprising because, like, when you're 20 years out or X amount of years out for people anticipating a sequel, why is there a rush? Seriously.
Yeah, and we waited 40 years for this, but now all of a sudden we have 2 weeks to get it done.
Yeah, but we're gonna sit in a writer. We're gonna finish writing the movie after what, 9 weeks?
Yeah, but guess what? The Mandalorian knew where it wanted to go, where it wanted to start, where it wanted to end, and what it wanted to spin off to. That's why there are 4 or 5 different spin-offs that were all going to tie together, all going to overlap, all going to intertwine, much like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is a great
that's how
template.
it's done.
It's a great template to follow. It's how modern movies are done. Like the idea of a trilogy didn't become a thing. There was usually just a sequel, and that was it. And then all of a sudden, someone made a third movie and called it a trilogy. Now everybody shoots for 3 movies. So if you're going to do that, have an idea that there's going to be a third one coming. Again, another DC movie that failed in that is Green Lantern.
Yeah.
Know the end from the beginning, and don't rush the little antagonist bad guy that could have been your main villain and throw the big villain in and get him out of the way before you even get started. You're opening up the door to a bigger universe. Treat it like that. Take it slow, and do it right. So anyway, that's where, like I said, there were 5 different spinoffs. So don't kill off Chris Pine, or don't set her in 1944. Just have that be a flashback if you want to keep him in the movie.
Well, even The Dark Knight Rises, that's the end of a trilogy, right? They still, at the end, they left it open. Hey, more could happen. Joseph Gordon-Levitt could be Robin. Bruce Wayne is still alive, and they think he's dead.
Yep.
That's the whole. You know what you could open that up to? There's a lot of mixed opinions on this. So my Arkham Knight game.
Yeah.
In the end of the game, he faked. Okay, big spoilers if you haven't played Arkham Knight. He fakes Bruce Wayne's death because Scarecrow unmasks him.
Yeah.
So everyone knows it's him. So
Yeah.
he bombs Wayne Manor, makes everybody think Bruce Wayne is dead. So what he starts doing, he uses like smaller doses or different doses of Scarecrow's fear toxin to make people think he's like the ghost of Batman or like a demon of Batman, because people need to fear him again. So what you could do, you can have Robin be Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Bruce Wayne, since everyone thinks he's dead, could do what's called Nightfall.
Yeah.
Which is where he's just Batman all the time and everybody thinks Bruce Wayne is dead.
Yeah.
They still left it open to do more. And that's where Christopher Nolan succeeds. I mean, people are still talking to this day about, like, Inception.
Yeah.
He never super closes the movie. You know what I mean? It's never. It's not always.
He could be one dream layer down still from reality.
So,
all right. So
we got to wrap this up.
How do we make it better?
Yeah. So.
All right. So first, and we already talked about it. Know the end. Write it out, and then pick it apart and put it back together to make your story solid.
Yeah, completely.
You can see that in Harry Potter, where in the first Harry Potter, throughout that series, they kind of paint themselves into corners multiple times, and it almost seems unintentional. So to correct something that happened 3 movies back that you decided you didn't want, you have a magic spell that you can come up with. So,
just real quick to preface that, the more we do this, I'm going to use this term a lot more, and I had to explain it to my dad a couple weeks ago. When a movie does something like that, where it's kind of written into a corner, and then something completely unlikely, like something impossible happens to save them, that's just kind of, they did that because a movie had to happen, that's called a deus ex machina. So this movie is just riddled with them.
Yeah. So, biggest one of all, you want to bring Chris Pine back in because he's awesome and he was such a great, portion of the first movie, but you killed him off, or you have to kill, whether he died of old age or whatever else, it just doesn't work. So to bring him back as a young man, you put him, I don't know, you just put him in the body of an old guy, or another guy, but she just sees him that way because her mind wants to see him that way, and we get to see him as the audience, and it just is weird.
Well, I don't know. I don't know why there's a problem with just having him be brought back. Why does he have to?
Oh, that's exactly.
Why does he have to inhabit another body?
Well, and I was in a place and I was waiting there, and all of a sudden now I'm here. Okay, way to skip right past, Afterlife.
Yeah, seriously.
And where he's been chilling for the last 30 years.
I saw baby Gamora in Black Widow, and then I got snapped back into existence.
Yeah.
Like he got trapped in the Soul Stone or something.
Exactly.
But,
so if you know where you want to tie into the rest of the movies, if you know where to, when you want to think about whether or not this movie works, think about a sequel to it when you are about 3/4 of the way done writing it.
Yeah.
Start thinking about how can we make a sequel, or are we done making standalone Wonder Womans?
Okay, then how do we wrap this up? Then you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like think about it. Film needs form. Films need form. If you get that reference, you're awesome. And the other thing for this movie is just like you said, they really need to know what they were going for with the story, and in all honesty, just to make a better story.
Yeah. And little better casting, a little different casting. Don't go overly cheesy on the characters that are supposed to be cheesy. Don't spoon feed some things and then gloss over others. There's not enough balance in the movie to be awesome. And it's unfortunate because, like I said, the first one was really good. This one had the potential, but your bad guy, flesh out your bad guy first, because
why did we get his backstory right at the end of the movie? Why couldn't we have got that to begin with? I never connected with his character more than when they finally showed us his backstory.
Yeah, then all of a sudden you get it. So, and you're like, oh wow, okay, I can get the redemption story now. I can get behind that. But we didn't even realize he was genie mixed with a vampire. And it just seemed like all of a sudden that was just a thing. So now that he wished himself to be the genie, now all of a sudden he can take back a price and he can determine what it is, versus just the little totem being the thing that makes the decision for you.
Yeah, you want to talk about Deus Ex Machina is the rules of that stone. Like all the random nonsense like that.
Well, and why was he falling apart? Was he crystallizing? You want to have a better story? Have him, or another better bad guy, have him empower himself with the stone, but he did ask to be the stone, right? Or the thing.
So he starts like crystallizing as the movie goes on?
Yes, that should have been the aging. And I think they decided they wanted to keep him around for the kids' sake, as opposed to just have him being a sacrificial bad guy. Where like the crystallization, the stone that he had could have been like the crystallized, or bones of the last guy who put that bracelet on, not the actual crystal itself.
Oh,
have the crystal, the little band that was wrapped around it. They never talked. They showed it and then never talked about it again. She heard the inscription she read is whatever this is wrapped around or whatever is has the power, and it's like she's talking about gods and that this is kind of like a Loki type god made this thing, and that all the wishes come with a price, and then you make that be a bad guy. it just doesn't work as a bad guy power. It would have been better as an object that he becomes the servant of, as opposed to being the object itself. But if he had put the bracelet on, like it dissolved and he slid the bracelet on, and then he starts crystallizing, and then he becomes the object for the next person 100 years down the line to then discover, kind of like throwing the lamp into the Cave of Wonders. Then Aladdin finds it an eternity later or whatever, and he stumbles across it. So there's that perpetual, there's the possibility that it will become something else again for someone else and go through the whole thing again. They never touched on that bracelet thing.
No, that's...
Again, why it was bent, why the inscriptions on, why is it Egyptian on the inside and Greek or
language of the gods.
Yeah, and then it was Latin on the outside. I don't know. So I would have, like I said, a better bad guy, and I don't like when they have two bad guys and one bad guy made the other bad guy, and then they have to kind of team up, and he's inviting her to join along, and it just seemed like an odd, awkward team up. The only thing more awkward was Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face and Jim Carrey as the Riddler. It just seemed
it was two weak bad guy plots that were not enough to add the climax to the movie.
So my theory is on movies, can you take X, Y, or Z out of the movie and have the movie still work, or work on a different level? I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but my reference would be when first couple times I saw Rogue One. Could you replace Jyn Erso's character with anyone else? And for the first couple times, the answer was yes. You could put Luke in that role, and it didn't really matter. You know what I mean? Just change the love interest, and the movie is ultimately the same. Until it hit me that the whole reason for bringing down the Empire is for a father's love of his daughter, which was actually, the father's love of a son and daughter was what brought down the Empire at the end as well. It's actually kind of a common theme that they went back and went to.
Yeah.
So it worked. But can you take someone out of, or a premise out of the story? So can you take Wonder Woman out of Wonder Woman 1984 and have it be a actually better movie? Probably. Because anybody could have found a magic wishing stone and wished for powers and done everything that you did, and then have the other person wish for those powers and to fight them.
You could have the whole movie be about that crystal, and it's one person who's morally right, and just, for her in the movie, she's the morally
a good guy with a good guy with a gun is the only way to beat a bad guy with a gun.
Yeah, so
that's kind of the concept.
She didn't. I don't know what the word is.
She didn't need to be Wonder Woman in the first place for the story to start, and she didn't have to be Wonder Woman at the end of it, because Cheetah didn't need to be Cheetah at the beginning of the story, and she only became Cheetah because she wished on a stone, not because she was born somewhere, had a special power. So it didn't need to be a Wonder Woman movie to be a movie. And probably, again, would have been a better movie and made more sense had it not been a Wonder Woman movie. And you got to think about that when you start going down the rabbit hole of writing a movie and coming up with a concept of, how are we going to make a second Wonder Woman? Well, let's do this. Then take a step back, and this is where studios just as a whole need to stop pushing for timelines and money and go with making a better movie, because you'd actually make more money.
Well, that's why by
doing it right.
That's why the first Wonder Woman worked, because for the movie she needed to be Wonder Woman, because she's fighting men with guns. She's not the only person she fought that was of equal or greater strength was Ares. At the end, and even then she needed help to bring him down. At least I believe, and she needed the team to do it.
Yes.
She needed Chris Pine around, and she needed to have her powers and her ability to deflect bullets.
Yes. it's like adding Superman to the mix. But if you can just wish to be Superman, you don't need Superman. So Wonder Woman could have, if she was just a person, if she was just a co-worker of the Kristen Wiig character, and this could have been Night at the Museum 4. Right? Yeah. They find this antique. This guy had already done some research, wanted it, found it. She found the receipt or the sales slip in the thing that they were holding it for him, and really never made mention of it again. It's like, oh, he was already looking for this ahead of time. So she could have wished on that stone and wished to have powers and be good, and then, but that was her sacrifice, was for him to be back. So, you know what I mean? You didn't need to bring him back. She was losing her powers in order to have Chris Pine's character back, and then she sacrificed him. I don't know, make 2 wishes because the other one got 2 wishes. Whatever.
Yeah.
Have her trade her wish for Chris Pine to then have her wish be that she's all powerful. Have her fight the bad guys, and then at the end of the day, everybody goes back to powerless, and the world goes on. It didn't need to be a Wonder Woman story. That's my point.
And that's, to wrap things up, that's almost all we can really say on the matter. I mean, we could go on and on, but it would just be more
when we've almost talked as long as a 2.5-hour movie. It's time to wrap it up.
So, to paraphrase Pedro Pascal in this movie is not good, but it can be better.